Listen, laugh, and learn with Sacha and Ish as they share their experiences, thoughts, and tips to build skills that are not so average and a career that's not so ordinary. This is the Not So Breakfast Show.
All right, welcome to the Not So Breakfast Show today, the podcast for leadership and career development. And today, wow, it feels like a year of 50 because you turned 50. I am turning 50 on Friday, and this is our 150th episode of the Not So Breakfast Show. It is all about 50, well, 150 shows, but we are here to celebrate that and also to chat about what's been going on over the last 3 years, because it has been a crazy ride. Lots of stuff has changed, but one of the things that hasn't changed is me and Sacha still together after all this time, recording the shows, leaving our legacy. Sacha Coburn, how the hell are you?
So good to be here with you today. Ish. Happy birthday for 2 days' time. You don't look a day over 47, so that's good. That's good, but 50 hits, man. 50 hits in a way that you might not expect, other than you're a man, and so you probably experience this at 30 and 40 as well. So maybe you do know what's coming. And it's so funny when you talk about us leaving our legacy, because I remember when I thought about one of the reasons I said yes to doing the podcast, it was because I thought, well, you know, the whole cancer background means you always have this heightened risk of dying. And like, if anyone wanted to know, well, I wonder what Sacha would have thought about this particular topic. Well, now they know. They can just basically look back. There's 150 episodes of what does Sacha think about this? And I don't think that this is going to be archived in the National Library of New Zealand. I don't think we're creating an audio treasure here where people in the future are going to say, wow, that was incredible. But I do like the idea that people who care about me would be able to go back and ask, or if they wondered. So that's been great. Is the legacy beyond that? Oh, that's for others to say, I think.
It is quite interesting, though, from just with our own families, right? When you do something that's long-form content like this, I mean, there's literally like 75, 80 hours, if I'm doing my math right, of podcast episodes available. And I know that, you know, if something happened to us, it would be interesting for our families to go back through, or our grandchildren eventually, even though all of our content would be out of date by then, but to actually listen back and go, that was my granddad, that was my, grandma that was doing that podcast, and they did swear a little bit, but man, they had a lot of fun.
That's exactly it. And I think, as you know, one of the coolest things, or the milestone things for me about reaching 150 episodes is that means we've hung out 150 times. And I reckon you've got best friends that you don't see as often or as regularly as you see me, and the same is true for me. And I actually have just taken so much from the time that we spend together, and that maybe what anybody who wants to strengthen a relationship should do is just start a podcast and commit to seeing somebody regularly, because it does really build and grow your friendship. And I think that's a super bonus outcome for me.
Yeah, well, I've definitely enriched my knowledge, obviously spending time with you and discussing stuff. But when you're forced to come up with content every single week, when you're forced to meet and talk and put a show out and then listen to it and edit it, it is interesting how much it pushes the boundaries of discussion, because we've discussed lots of different stuff, and I know that's some of the things that we'll talk about today. But I know the reason that we also started it was because we kind of wanted to talk to people that were our age, that were thinking about changing their careers or questioning if they want to still do stuff the way they're doing it. But then we also ended up picking up quite a young listener base that just were kind of going, I've never heard this stuff before. They didn't teach me this at university. I don't know how to have the conversation about a pay rise, or I don't know how to have the conversation to give feedback to someone that is a manager. So all of these little bits of information and stuff that we've discussed has not only helped me in my career, but I know has definitely been helpful in helping other people with their careers too.
The idea, not so much the idea for a podcast, because jeepers, doesn't every white man about your age have a podcast? It's like a thing. I must put my thoughts into the world. People must hear me speak, listen to my thoughts. But it was born in that COVID time when none of us knew what was really happening. And I think we both had this desire to continue to contribute to the world. I think at heart we both kind of sounds cheesy, but we're both givers. Like, we want to create stuff and give stuff away and help people, and that's our motivation comes from that. And during the pandemic, we had much less access to people. We weren't speaking in front of groups. We weren't having get-together meetings as much. And then as we've gone back and reintegrated into society, had to wash before we leave the house and put makeup on from time to time, well, you do, we've still kept up that idea of saying, what little piece of information could you share that might help someone today? And I think that's enough for me. I don't have, some of my favourite podcasts that I listen to are incredibly well researched, and they're really quite intellectual, and we are not. And I think that's okay. I think that's okay. It's not that what we're saying isn't true, but it's that I think there are little gems dotted throughout some of the stuff that we talk about and from some of our visitors, etc. And I think that if a little bit of that helps people, then yay. It serves our purpose, right?
Yeah. Well, I mean, I know the podcasts I listen to, I crave the entertainment. So I definitely want the knowledge bombs, but I can't handle the high-level intellectual discussion of two people talking about things. And it's so high-level that I'm like, okay, yes, I can see how smart you are, but what are you watching on Netflix? Or what do you think about that thing that just happened in society? Like, I think sometimes that entertainment factor wrapped around information that you can take and go, you know what? I didn't know that. And it kind of reminds me of the guy from Atomic Habits. He talks about that, 1% improvements every day, like those little bits of knowledge or committing to learning. And then all of a sudden that mounts up. So if you have listened to 75 hours of our content, and we know we have got people out there that have been listening since the beginning, I reckon that's 75% smarter.
Well, from what I know, a few of those people have now gone on to incredible things. Like one of them's now the Prime Minister of New Zealand. I think, shout out to you, Chris. That's great. I mean, that's probably the most successful one I can think of.
Well, Taita Waiti, huge fan. Fletch and Vaughan.
Fantastic.
Yeah, I mean, we could keep naming people. Hilary Barry.
Yeah.
Yeah. Thanks for being with us since the beginning. I guess over the last 3 years, like we've had COVID, you've gone to Harvard, we've had, AI suddenly come on the scenes. It feels like things have changed dramatically just within a 3-year window. And we kind of have been riding that out together.
I think one of my favourite quotes at the moment is this idea that the future is here already. It's just not evenly distributed. So there are pockets of our society that are accessing incredible things in their businesses or in their personal life or the way that they're using technology, and there's other people who are not accessing that, and some of that is about access to resource, it's about money and funding, and sometimes it's just about curiosity. So there's a great little guy at the moment, you might have seen him on Instagram, and he's a 6-7-year-old, and he's a music producer. And he basically takes really layered pop songs and he recreates them.
Wow.
And his name's Miles, and he's little. He's been doing it since he was about 5. So as he gets more and more popular online, companies give him more and more stuff to play with and more tech. But the way he's putting it together and his ear for music and sound, it's phenomenal what he's doing. And he's 7 years old. He is doing crazy stuff. It's available to him, he's accessing it, he's doing it. It's incredible. And yet there are people who also have access to all kinds of technology who can't get their Excel spreadsheets to work, or they can't get ChatGPT to build their Excel spreadsheets for them. And so the distribution of the future is, for me, predicated on 2 things. One is your interest in embracing what's coming and learning more about these tools. And second is, do you have access to it? Do you have the financial means to take part in that? And those are different things. And I think you want to control the bit that you can control. Yeah. And for me, the jury's a little bit out on what some of the advances in AI can do. And often when we talk about AI, people are actually just talking about kind of a tech. It's not actually artificial intelligence. It's just like the mega language models, and we use those words interchangeably. But what it means is, if you're not accessing any of that stuff, you will ultimately get left behind, because if the pace of change inside your organisation or within yourself does not keep up with the pace of change external to you or external to your organisation, you'll get left behind. And some people are good with that. They're like, leave me behind. I'm here with my books. Thank you very much. That's me with reading. Take your Kindle and leave it on the plane like you always do. I'm just going to take my books with me. And I'm fine to sign up for that. But it would be naive and ignorant of me if I took that approach to every piece of new technology.
Yeah, and it's interesting, even when we did episodes about technology in the past, and we talked about the fact that embracing technology helps you keep up with technology. You know, the fact that one platform slightly helps with another platform. But what has shifted is technology is starting to learn us. So there was a time where the technology was there, but the user's ability to access that technology, it was difficult. You had to know quite a bit of stuff. Now you actually need to know a lot less, because the intuition of the software and the software's ability to kind of know how you're navigating it, that gap is closing. But the thing I would say is the more advanced your skill set is now, when you get into the easy technology solutions, you can use it way more than the person that's going in with a low skill set who can now use it because it's easy. Because there is a skill and an understanding, and that could be from ChatGPT. Yes, you can type in a question that will give you some information, but being able to type in the right question and finesse that in the right way, well, that's the skill gap, right? But the technology is easy to use.
Yeah, I always get scared not scared, but a little bit pissed off when my phone says to me, like I'll be out running an errand in town and my phone says, oh, are you going home now? It's 20 minutes. I'm like, how did you know? And obviously it's because most days when I go to the supermarket, the next thing I do is go home. But it does feel really Big Brother.
Yeah.
But I quite like it. I don't feel so alone in the universe.
Your Apple Watch is going, okay, so she's walked around the aisles for 75 minutes. It's time for us to go home now. Brilliant.
Ish must be waiting. There's a podcast waiting to be recorded.
It's been quite cool looking back at how the brand of the podcast, I think, has evolved. When we first kind of launched out, we were just having a go, testing the waters to see if anyone even wanted to listen. And we were putting some stuff out on Fiverr and designing some logos. And I remember pitching one of the logos to you that we had someone design. And we kind of had this idea of the breakfast show. Maybe it was like melted butter on toast, but what they came back was with jam on toast, and it looked like, I think you described it as stabby bloody toast.
It looked like someone had like accidentally cut their finger off while they were making their toast, and that was going to be our logo. I was like, I'm not feeling
No,
it.
so then we kind of iterated over time, and then we were, in the fortunate position to be able to do some stuff with an agency and get a more polished approach to a brand and a website. But I do have a fond memory and fond nostalgia for Bloody Stabby Toast, because it was a good defining moment in our social media. So do you have any episodes in particular that you kind of look back on and kind of think, that's right, I remember that one and what we talked about?
I used to love it when we played the Divinal song, When I Think About You, I Touch Myself, and do shout-outs to people that we loved, because it just felt just so perfectly us and just a little bit rude. And then we just kind of had to clean the show up and stop doing it because people were actually listening.
Did we just run out of people we love?
Love enough to touch ourselves, yeah. Sure. Maybe it'll come back in another form.
Yeah. Well, I think there's always been the discussion in the background about when are you going to do the one about the 90s, because we did do the one about the 80s, which even if that was just for us, oh, wow. What a banger of a show. But probably millennial market, there's probably a few people that would like to reminisce about the 90s and get to know that.
It's super scary when you talk about movies from like the early 2000s, and we're talking with some people at work about them, and they say, yeah, but I wasn't born in the early 2000s. Like, stop it! How can that be a thing?
We'll be right back.
If there was one skill that could double your income, advance your career, and increase your ability to influence, it is the skill of presenting. whether it's on stage, in the boardroom, or at a job interview. The 30-minute presenter program will help take you to the next level. So check out our Instagram page, click the link in the bio, and get started on the 30-minute presenter program. I've got shoes older than you.
Well, I have.
One of the other episodes I remember was the one about leveraging off your gaps. Like, I think you and I have been quite positive about the fact that you don't need to have all the skills and all the answers. Sometimes the fact that you've got a gap in a skill set creates an opportunity for someone else. And you and I often work in team environments, and often teams are a lot of individuals that have skills in different areas that when they're combined, they're capable of so much more. But if you're nervous or concerned about the fact that you have this gap, that could be actually something that works against you if you are constantly either trying to cover your ass in the background or you're trying to work on something that you're just not that great at. Sometimes the acknowledgement that you're not that great at it means that you have this ability to curate people around you, facilitate other people into opportunities, help them develop, help them step up. So yeah, that was a good episode and a good attitude, I think, for just especially early in your career. You may not have it all together, and that's literally okay.
I was reminded the other day of a Michael Caine, the actor Michael Caine, famous actor. He's got that just eminently impressionable voice, so people are always doing impressions of him. I'm not going to grace.
I was only supposed to blow the bloody doors off.
I know. Okay, that's a terrible, but I want to encourage you. Good, yes, keep trying. Excellent, thanks, Ish. So he was on Michael Parkinson, and he was talking about an early director that he'd had, and he'd learned this lesson from him, and they were doing a scene on the stage, and it had been improvised, and a chair had fallen over and it was blocking the doorway. Michael Caine was supposed to open the door and walk in. And so he just paused and he said to the director, well, I can't go in because the chair's there. They've accidentally put the chair in the doorway. And the director just said, use the obstacle. If you have an obstacle in front of you, use the obstacle. And so in the acting sense, you just make it part of the scene. You open the door and go, what's going on here? Who put this bloody chair here? Or whatever. But the metaphor for life was really powerful. And I think that's part of what we talk about when we say leverage your gaps, is if there's an obstacle in front of you, rather than just say, oh, that's it. There's no possible way I can do that thing now, is actually how can you take that thing and turn it into a strength, or use it to your advantage, or use it to get higher than you perhaps thought you might otherwise have done. So I love that stuff. I loved episode 80 when we talked about having a mental reset. And I think, as we go into not only just our 150th episode, which is the end of the season, but also it's the end of the year for us, the end of 2023, and that time of renewal and refreshing. It's good to check in and go, how do I mentally reset? How do I get myself up for another year next year? What does that look like? And I actually love going back. I don't know if this makes me weird in terms of podcast host, but I love going back and listening to old episodes. Yeah. And even stuff that I've said, I go, oh, that's good. I can use that. Like, you said it. Do you do the same thing? Do you hear what you've said and go, oh, that's goodish. That's good advice. You need to take that.
Yeah. I listened to the one with the 15 coaching questions again the other day because I had a coaching session coming up and I was like, what were those 15 questions? And I went back and I was like, gold. And just realizing that how much power is in structure and having some opportunity to have a flow or a model or a structure to help you deliver it. I just had the questions and I just worked my way through the list, and at the end of it they were like, oh man, that was really good. And I was like, yeah, it was. And the episode was great too.
Yeah, and I've got news. I have, for the first time in a long time, just had a first consult with a coach. And it's been a long time since I've had coaching. And I know it's that plumbers with a dripping tap. Here's me doing lots of coaching with others through my everyday life and kind of feeling like if I have questions, I know how I'm going to find the answers. But I know that I've got a couple of decisions and crossroads coming up, both in my career and our family transition. Kids are leaving home. There's a lot going on. So I thought, you know what, I'm going to invest in a coach. And she was saying to me, oh, well, I can help you, and what kind of coaching do you want? And gave some advice, and I said, look, here's what I want to do. I want you to give me some frameworks and models that will help me do what it is that I'm going to do anyway. I'm most likely going to ignore your advice, but I'm going to feel much better for having asked for some external view. And I think it's that's so important sometimes, the external view that we get. And I may well have my mind changed or shifted, and I'm open to that. I love the realization when you've come to the end of yourself. You go, hey, yay, me, I've got myself this far, but now I'm going to need some more help. And the external lens looking in is always super helpful. So I go back to that episode, not even just for asking questions of others, but I just ask those questions of myself as well.
Yeah. And especially I think as we get to 50, we don't want to spend 20 years learning that lesson from 20 to 40, right? We want to be able to spend 20 minutes learning that lesson and being able to get that information at a higher level. And I love that whole principle of one up, one down mentoring, or one up, one down coaching. Who are you coaching and who are you getting coached by? Who are you mentoring and who are you getting mentored by? And that can start early. Like you can be 17, 18, 19, and you can still be mentoring someone that is younger than you and practicing that skill set, but also receiving great mentorship. And that relationship will change over time, as will your ability to coach and mentor, and as will the people that you influence, because different people come into your life for different reasons at different times.
And it's not just age either, because what old people, and I shouldn't generalise, but what old people in organisations should be doing is every time a new young kid is being employed is to say, can you be my mentor? Teach me everything you know about the world as it currently is experienced by people of your age or by you, and please teach me everything you do with your phone and your computer on a regular basis so I can keep in touch with what it is that's happening out there. Why wouldn't that be the first thing you do when a 17-year-old joins your workforce?
Yeah. Some of the episodes where we've interviewed people have been insightful. One, because you get to hear their kind of career stories, and it's always interesting on hearing how people get to where they are, because most of the time you just see the end result, right? We kind of go, oh, I wish I had that talent. Oh, I wish I had that ability. Oh, that person's so lucky. And what you haven't seen is the chaos, the drama, the losses, the life's not fair moments, the post-traumatic growth that's happened, or the post-traumatic stress that's happened, all of that thing that kind of happens in the background. And we've often used that analogy like an iceberg, right? You only really see 10% that's out the top, but there's a whole lot going on underneath. But interviewing people throughout the podcast has been an interesting way for us to come up with future topics, or ask them questions, or explore people who have done life slightly differently. And one of the people that always comes back to mind is Julia Grace, and her journey with her own mental health, and how she's taken that, what would be seemingly unfair that she's had to cope with this, and how she has dealt with that every single day, but has turned that into a career, a message, and how it's influenced her as a singer and a performer. And she sang her song, Girl on the Kitchen Floor, which is an amazing song that every time I hear it, I cry. I love those kind of lessons and life moments we've had with people on the show.
Yeah, I've re-listened to that one that we did with Maureen Baker, because throughout her life, that constant thread of being involved and being activist and giving and serving and delivering stuff for others, and continues to do that into her ripe old age. And I think that's really inspirational, because part of my dilemmas and what I'm talking to the coach about is I feel like 50 is halfway. So what does the second half of my life look like? And for many women, and not just women, but women in particular, those first 50 years, or certainly from 23, 24 onwards, have been about the service of others. Even though I've had a fantastic life and I've done lots of the things that I want, there's been a huge focus on what does my family need from me? What does my husband need? What do my children need from me? What do my parents need of me? And we have so much of a focus on others. And I'm kind of feeling like I might just, and I don't mean to be flippant, but I might just identify as a man from now on and ask myself, what do I want?
Yeah.
What does success look like for me? And what does a fulfilled life look like if I'm not talking about pretending I don't have children. I'm not going to divorce my children, or it's not about my relationship with my husband. It's about saying, without that daily grind of dinner, bath, bed, running round, and it's very boring, because most people who hit this age have a similar thing that they go through. So there's centuries of people, well, actually they died when they were 50, so it's not centuries. There's decades of people having existential crises when we get to this age, but I just want to be deliberate about exploring that. I'm not stopping. I'm just getting started. And when we get to 1,500 episodes, then we've got something to celebrate, Ishmael. 1,500 episodes! I can't even do the maths. What year will that be? On to the Not So Breakfast Show, coming to you live from heaven. Ash, when you look back on the 150 episodes and the discipline of doing the podcast, the editing of it, the coming up with the ideas, the meeting with me, what have you learned during that process, or have you learned anything? Has anything changed for you?
Yeah, I mean, I've learnt that I need to have it scheduled, 1 to plan, 2 to record, and 3 to edit, because it is one of those things that it is quite a demand on time and it is a demand on thought process. And if it's not in my calendar, what happens is I get to Sunday and I go, I was supposed to be releasing tomorrow, and then I spend Sunday editing, and then I have to get it up and loaded. Whereas if we're actually 1 or 2 ahead, I find that much easier. Right. So sometimes when we're planning the content, I'm thinking about maybe what the 1-2 weeks from now is, because we've kind of already got the one that we're going to be doing locked in. So for me, that planning has helped free up my time. And I also have learnt that there are certain times that I'm better to be editing than other times. So if I leave it to the last minute, I'll be doing it late at night, which was my worst time. And then all of a sudden it takes way longer, and I don't enjoy the process as much.
And those are things that you've shared across multiple episodes around managing your energy. When is the right time to do a particular task? How do you schedule stuff? I mean, you're just the ninja of that stuff. So it's really cool to hear how that's also been applied in the very production of the podcast.
Yeah. And the other learning I've had is the repetition of hearing the information again and again. So usually we record, then I'll edit, then I'll listen to it in its final point. So I end up hearing it basically 3 times. And even then, it's our content, and I'm still picking stuff up that I don't remember in that final one, right? So I think, how many times have we gone to a seminar and we've kind of go, oh man, that was great, I got these 3 things. There was probably like 20 things in there, but you just missed them because you were distracted, or you weren't thinking, or you were making a note about something else. So I am definitely going back and listening to things that I have listened to before and picking up new gems, rather than thinking I need something new. I might not need something new. In fact, the last 2 podcasts I've listened to 3 times each one, and I've drawn something different out every single time. But just this disposable nature now of information is there. So it's like, well, okay, I could now move on to something else, but have you really like squeezed all the juice out of that thing, or are you just trying to move on to something new? So I found that discipline and that practice really helpful. Yeah,
that just gold right there. I've been out of our house and now we're moving back into it, and I'm putting all my books back on the bookcase. And I was thinking, 2 things struck me. One is what an intellectual wanker I am. And that, like, as I was unpacking the books and I'd see a book, I almost have it's like unpacking my children. I have this emotional tie to them because I love my books. And the same way that I love my records, it's like my records tell me who I am, the music that I love and listen to regularly, the books that I read that I'm attracted to, they mirror back to me what interests me. But also, that's the kind of the bad news. And then the worst news is how little of those books I remember. Like if you said, so what's this book about? And I go, oh, this is a book about how to lead your company through lean times. And what were the main points the author made? So exactly that you can absorb all of this knowledge, but if you can't recall it and use it when you need it, then what was the point of spending all that time getting those words into your head? Now, it's useful in terms of how it shapes your ongoing worldview and the neural pathways in your brain continue to respond to the information. So I'm not saying stop reading, but the challenge to myself is to perhaps stop buying books. At least for a time, just go back into the books that have been a great source of knowledge and inspiration previously, and just remind myself by reminding them for the gold that's in there. because not every new shiny book that's written has got the answer to the challenges that we face.
So I guess over this next little while, we are going to take a bit of a break, 150 episodes, end of season 4. Keen to come back for season 5, which probably is a question. Hey, Sash, you want to hang out a bit more in 2024?
I want to renegotiate my contract. For the last 4 seasons, you've been paid nothing and I've been paid nothing. And I'm just thinking, should we keep doing that?
Well, maybe if you're listening to the show and you want to sponsor our show, get in touch.
There we go.
Yeah, we could get a sponsor. First sponsor gets a great deal. Second sponsor's going to pay. But, we do want to thank people that are listening and thank you for listening. And thank you for sticking with us for 150 episodes. And whether you've just started with us or whether you've been with us for a long time, we do really appreciate your time every single week that you get to have us in your ears. And if you're listening to us in the bath as well, then it's an extra special time with Sacha and Ish in your ears, in the bath, or wherever you do your podcasting. But definitely a thank you and our gratitude is with you. And share the love, flick the episodes out to people. It's something that I've been practicing a lot more when I do listen to a podcast. It's like, okay, so who can this go to? Let's pass it around. Let's circulate that information because it comes back and then all of a sudden they flick something your way as well.
And I want to thank everybody that writes in with feedback. It's super helpful for us when you say, oh, I really loved that. Could we have more of that? Or what did you guys mean by this? Or I think you're right, Sacha, Ish is mean to you. Whatever your feedback is, we love hearing it. And I want to do a special shout out to Michelle Pearson and her girls who have listened to us since day one and continue to give feedback and share the love, and that energy really keeps us going. So thank you, Michelle.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you, Michelle.